Hello, Pastor Barry McLaughlin here. Welcome to another episode of 7 Minutes of Scripture. Important update about the channel. We are now going to be posting Monday, Wednesday, Friday, and Saturday. That's Monday, Wednesday, Friday, and Saturday, 4 days a week instead of 6, so that we give people a chance to catch up on the series if they happen to miss a day. And just for the first couple weeks, we were posting every day just to make sure we kind of get the channel off and started, get some Bible studies in, but now we're going to do that to give you a chance to catch up, and that way you'll have 3 days a week to catch up on videos and you won't get too far behind. And you can stay with us in the Genesis series that we're on now. If you haven't caught up so far, I would definitely pause that, watch the other videos, because we've hit a lot of context before this. We've talked about day 1, and we just left off on what makes a day 24 hours. We've talked a lot about God creating the universe from nothing and creating the earth from nothing, time, space, and matter. Now we are into verse 2, and at this point the earth is essentially a ball of water. We understand that days exist, literal days, so the earth is spinning on its axis. The sun doesn't yet exist, but light does. And we understand that there is a day and light cycle. What's the light? Well, light is a photon. And light doesn't necessarily, in this case, have to have a source, because you have to understand this. God fixed the laws of physics and the way everything goes after day 6 of creation. He rested on the 7th. But the methods by which God was creating the universe on day 1 through 6, those methods are not currently in action. That means the things that he was doing in days 1 through 6 was special creation. That's not happening right now. And so therefore, we can't always look at the now and necessarily judge what God was doing in a supernatural intervention or special creation days 1 through 6. And so that's one of those difficulties whenever you're looking at it. We can talk about the age of the earth and things like that. But, when we look back to light, what was the light? We understand light's a photon, but we also understand there wasn't necessarily a star or anything like that emitting it, because stars weren't created until day 4. So we just go with what the text says. You can read into the text, I guess. You can make some presuppositions, but really, when I say read into the text, we're basing that on context. You don't want to read too much. But so we understand that there is a light source, there's darkness, there's days, and there's no dry land yet, no continents. That's not going to come until day 3. But day 2 says this: God called, in verse 5, the day... I lied. Didn't lie, I was mistaken. Let's look at verse 6. Moving on. Then God said, "Let there be a firmament in the midst of the waters, and let it divide the waters from the waters." And so what we have to understand with this, and we're probably going to spend about 2 days on this subject, but so there is a firmament. The word firmament, we'll break down the Hebrew of this at a later time, but the word firmament essentially, you can look this up in any concordance, it essentially means expanse. And notice the second part of that verse: let it divide the waters from the waters. And so it seems to be that when God created some form of hydrological cycle. So we understand that all the water was on the earth. He created a space, and we don't understand from the text. We don't know if God caused some of the water to come up in the form of a mist and then form clouds. We don't necessarily know, but we know that he created the clouds, the hydrological system, the processing and movement of water throughout Earth's cycles. He created this expanse or area in between the earth, which is a ball of water, and the clouds and water above. And I'll give you another theory on that in a second, but thus God made the firmament and divided the waters which were under the firmament from the waters which were above the firmament. And it was so. And God called the firmament heaven. So the evening and the morning were the first day. And so you might have heard when Paul talks about being swept up to the third heaven or caught up to the third heaven, when it says heaven there in that verse, it's talking about in the sense of the sky. So the heaven, this is what the New Testament author Paul would call the first heaven. The second heaven would be above those clouds. It would be space. And then the third heaven would be the dwelling place of God, which we don't really fully comprehend because we're finite beings. But that's what it means when it says heaven. And some of your versions may not say that. I'm reading out of the New King James, which I personally think is one of the best Bible versions as far as accuracy to the original manuscripts. That's a whole nother study. We'll get to it at a different time. But yeah, looking at this, it's interesting how God created this system, but we also have to understand some people say that God created what's called a water vapor canopy. And this is possible. It is possible that the original clouds and system that were beyond the earth, the expanse, it could be possible that these clouds were in the form of like maybe ice crystals or a layer of ice crystals, or maybe they were frozen. We don't fully understand that. Um, I think it was probably clouds, like in the form of clouds and the system we have today. We do understand also that it didn't rain before the flood, though. And so that's what makes this really peculiar. It seems to be that something was different, but I can't say for certain what that is. But this water above, it is possible that it could have been some kind of water vapor canopy. Some people, in fact, say that's perhaps why the people lived to be so old. They were able to live to be so old even after the fall, is because of the fact that the harmful radiation from the sun wasn't able to get to them. I think there's other arguments you can make as to why they live to be so old. I think those numbers are real, and I think there's good genetic studies that would show why they live to be so old. I don't think we need to propose a water canopy necessarily to do that, or to suggest why dinosaurs went extinct. But if you look at this water vapor canopy, one of the biggest objections to it, I would say it's not really necessary. It's kind of reading into the text. But I think one of the biggest objections to it is from a scientific perspective. People say, well, it's impossible for the atmosphere to hold that much water. Maybe, but also the way God was creating and the way the early earth was, we weren't there. And we don't know the methods that he was using to create it. And we also don't necessarily have a scientific model that can explain everything. And so it is very possible there could have been a canopy. And in fact, if you look at Genesis 6, the sources of the flood, it says the windows of heaven were open, which is different than when it says it's raining in Genesis 6. So it's possible that the clouds or the system was maybe a little bit different. Something interesting for you to dive into and think about. I know some of the writers, I've read Henry Morris's stuff, he brings it up. But yeah, something to think about, guys. If you read 6 through probably next couple days, maybe day 3 and 4, that's what we'll be getting into the next couple days. So I hope you guys have had a wonderful week so far. God bless you all, your families. Don't forget to subscribe to the channel, get more videos like this, and we'll see you in Friday's video.